last video that there'd be a second part to this jazz repertoire issue. In the meantime, I just got back from a trip to the Midwest where I was doing clinics with high school jazz bands. I was going to say, essentially, they were playing music that they got from essentially Ellington, Duke Ellington, and Billy Strayhorn arrangements and compositions. There were a couple of other things that they did as well, but and all the material they played was really good, and the students played the stuff quite well. It was, I mean, one band was less technically proficient, and so some of the charts that they chose were a little ambitious, I think, for but all the other bands, they did quite well in this material. I know that there's a feeling amongst a lot of high school band directors that we can't play Duke Ellington's music, that's too difficult. Well, some of Ellington's pieces are technically demanding, but most are not, and there are quite a few that are certainly within the abilities of high school students, so that you're dealing with musical issues, which I think is the preferred route for working with school bands. You want to find stuff that they can play technically, so that you can discuss music, how to play more musically, where to crescendo, where to put accents, so those kinds of issues that make the music come alive that they can handle. When I was young, I noticed that there were two kinds of music that I encountered as a trumpet player in jazz bands, and there were the charts where I could play the parts, and they were fun to play because I could bring my personality to it, and I could put a vibe on it, as the guys over at Lincoln Center say. And then there were charts that there's just nothing you can do with it. You just play the flat notes, and that's all there is to it. The first category that I found I could be expressive there were pieces like, from Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and a lot of the swing bands. A lot of that seemed to work very well. Whereas when we would play things like from Stan Kenton or music from the pop arena, basically you just play the notes. And I never found that very rewarding, just playing notes. I always wanted to be able to be myself in the music. That's very important to me. So when choosing music to perform with the band, and school bands as well, I try to find things where the students can find themselves, or the musicians can find themselves in the music and add to the interpretation, rather than just filling out the third of the chord. It's like you want to really love your note. I remember when I was in the Ellington band, and I was playing Cootie's book, basically, because he just wanted to play solos. And so it was like third and fourth trumpet parts. And the option that one day came to switch parts with a higher part, and I said, no, I love my part. Even if it was just whole notes, those notes just felt so good to play. That's a good arrangement when you have that. So I look for that in arrangements. Last time I talked about some easier Count Basie charts. Those by Billy Byers and by Neil Hefti were really good. Some Quincy Jones, and of course anything that you can get from essentially Ellington. Those are free for high school bands. It's you just have to register with them, and they send you whatever it is, 6 or 8 charts a year for free. It's there's no better bargain than that, and they're very good arrangements. And they also, aside from Ellington, they also like this year, I think they had Fletcher Henderson, Down South Camp Meeting, and we've done some Dizzy Gillespie stuff in the past. Gerald Wilson, Benny Carter, a lot of good stuff. Mary Lou Williams. So I recommend, if you can get with the essentially Ellington program from Jazz at Lincoln Center. I don't believe there's a fee at all for the music, and so other pieces that other composers, I recommend, like, if you can get all the classic writers. Well, Gerald Wilson, he's a very good writer. And going back, anything from Jelly Roll Morton, which wouldn't be for big band, but that's, if you have a smaller group, the Jelly Roll Morton, the Red Hot Peppers, those are fantastic. Anything by Don Redman, by Cy Oliver, Fletcher Henderson, and working your way up through the more modern writers. If you can find anything by Thad Jones or Bob Brookmeyer, that some of those, they have some things that are playable by younger bands. I would recommend those. I know like Brookmeyer's got a piece called First Love Song, which is not technically difficult at all. It's very simple. And I think he has a few others out there. Bob's one of the great writers of all time. Thad Jones, he's got a few pieces. Certainly any band could play A Child is Born, which technically is Roland Hanna's piece, but we'll go into that some other time. And Frank Foster probably has a few things out there that would work well. I've transcribed a lot of the stuff. I have a lot of them, but be careful when you go to publishers. A lot of times they'll have simplified versions of these charts, and those that's kind of like reading. If you're going to read a book by a famous author, that's like if somebody else went through it and changed a lot of the words. You kind of lose a lot. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. Some have done better than others, but if you can play the originals, I think that's always best. And if anybody has any questions and want some advice, in my band we have this, and this player is a strong player, but we only have 2 trombones, or whatever it is. You can always send me an email at my website, and I'd be very happy to steer you to some stuff that might be good for your band. So the whole object of this is how to keep the kids get the kids interested in jazz, keep them interested. If they're playing really good charts, it'll be a lot more fun for them than if they're playing mediocre, themes from TV shows or pop songs or even mediocre jazz pieces that just is, they'll play it once or twice and it's just not going to hold their interest. Whereas a piece by Duke Ellington, for instance, bass, you can rehearse his stuff for months and months and still learn every day. There's just so much depth in that music. So good luck with this stuff. And as I said, any questions, feel free to email me. I'm there for you.